Welcome back to the Real Estate Play-by-Play.
Welcome back.
We have a fun episode today.
So leveraging your power in social media.
Yeah.
So this is a good one. So I have to tell you, so my son, one of my 4 kids who is really into sports, they're all into sports, but one of my kids who's really into sports wanted to be on Instagram when he was 12 years old. And the way that Instagram is how most of you probably already know, is you have to be 13 in order to get an account. That's their legal age. So we told him, when you're 13, you can get an account. Now, the sole purpose that he wanted an account was because he wanted to post highlights of his basketball and baseball, his sports stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing these days. That is the thing.
That's his life.
And that is the thing with young athletes these days. It's not just on Instagram. You see it a lot on Twitter as well. You'll see a lot of players putting their highlight reels on Twitter. If they get offers to colleges, them promoting themselves and tagging different people.
Right.
One thing that I've noticed, which is kind of amazing in a crazy sort of way, is on Instagram, we'll go to these tournaments, right? So my son's on this national team and we'll go to these tournaments and they will put together, the tournaments will have a team, they call it a super team. And what they've done is they've gone on Instagram and they've looked at all these kids' reels of these 12-year-olds and they pick the players that are really good and they make one super team of like an Instagram team.
So crazy.
It is crazy.
And then talk about leveraging exposure, right?
Right. And then they come to the tournament and that's like the super team and they all play together for the first time.
Yeah.
And try to win the tournament.
Crazy.
So the same thing is with real estate these days.
Yeah.
Leveraging social media for your power as a buyer and a seller. There are definitely things that you can do to help.
Right. And we know about all the basics, right? We know, and we've talked about it in our technology episode, but buyers often start their home searches online. We know that that's kind of the basics, but it goes even more in depth from there, right? The basics. Obviously, as a real estate agent, you're sharing your listings and getting your audience more awareness of the properties that you are listing or buying, selling, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Those are kind of the common stuff.
Yep. And as a buyer, you're looking online to look through listings and find what homes are available, what homes are open this weekend, things like that. I mean, a lot of the time buyers come to us and they have a ton of information these days. So, a lot of the searches are already done on social media, which that's kind of stuff is kind of a given.
I mean, truly, our current house, I was not looking to buy a house. A real estate agent that we know posted it on his social media. And I fell in love with it. I was not looking for a house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so crazy, right? If he had not done that, I wouldn't have the house I have today.
Right. So we know the basic social media, but there's even stuff that as buyers and sellers you can do to leverage even a little deeper. So for example, as a buyer, especially in what we have in Northern California here is a little bit more of a seller's market these days.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
You're competing with multiple offers. Now, in some areas, they've done away with writing what's called a buyer's letter.
Right. Yeah, it's starting to get into a careful territory of making sure that there's no discrimination and things like that, which is important.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
But it also then takes away some leveraging that buyers have, where you used to be able to write your love letter, tell them all about you, give them pictures of your family and all that stuff. And sometimes I'm sure that still happens, but definitely areas it's starting to tighten up.
Yeah, it definitely. And unless a seller these days around here, unless a seller puts it in writing, we do not want to receive any letters.
Right.
You can get away with them sometimes.
Right.
And, not so much the pictures, but more the letter. And what I'm finding is buyers are kind of taking it to the next level. So they're going on social media. They're looking up who the seller is, information about the seller. And it's interesting because you can literally Google, I'm sure you've all done it.
Yeah.
You can Google somebody's name and all their social media accounts will come up.
Yeah.
Information about where they work. I mean, everything.
Yeah. Everything.
With simple searches.
Everything. And you can find out a lot of information, right? Where they went to college, where they grew up, all those things, whether they love dogs.
Yep.
And then use those things when you're trying to, appeal to them in order to get the bid, right?
Right, exactly. You can use those things to leverage some things in your letter. So for example, I've had a client that found out that the seller was a vet and my buyer was a vet. And so we made sure to put that in the letter. I mean, you're kind of playing on emotions, but at the same time, you're using what you have to your advantage to try to get the house. Because at the end of the day, yes, sellers might want to sell for top dollar, but there are a lot of sellers out there that have an emotional connection to their house.
Yeah.
And they want to sell it to somebody who loves their house also.
Yeah. And they care who's going to, take it over. I mean, I know our family sold like my grandmother's house, and it was important to us. We had 40, 50 years of memories there. Not me personally, but, the family. And you want to know that the next family or couple or whatever is going to enjoy it and appreciate it the same way.
Right. Exactly. And I will say, in the case that my buyers had wrote the letter and stated that he was a vet, we actually were not the top offer. Because they were kind of tapped out on how far they can go. There were multiple offers above us, but because of his letter and because of the vet and because of the connection, they ended up giving it to my client and accepting his offer. So the seller forego top dollar to give it to a buyer, another fellow vet. And that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And then likewise, there's probably some reverse aspects of that you've had as well, right? Where social media comes to get you in ways that you don't necessarily expect.
Right. So I had one recently. So I had some clients that put an offer in on a property. The property was a little overpriced.
Right.
They had no other offers. And we put the offer in significantly lower than what the seller was asking for, but it was probably at market value price.
Right.
Well, my clients had gone online on social media and posted about the house and about asking in general about what happens when a house is overpriced and why do sellers overprice homes. And he got a bunch of responses and he responded back. And long story short, his social media that he posted on was public.
Right.
As we were encounters with the seller happened to go online, Google the buyers, found his social media account, didn't like the things he was saying about
their
selling
home,
them, and decided, I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to counter you back. I don't want you to buy my house.
Right. Right.
So that's just a good reminder that, what you post on social media, if it's a public account, people are looking it up.
Yeah.
So they looked it up. They lost a house because of that post.
Right. Right. And I'm sure it all works out, right? They got the right house, and that's awesome.
And they ended up closing on
it always works out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
But it's really important if you're a buyer out there that you understand that, when you're out there making comments about a property, like unless your account is totally locked down, that information can be found and used against you.
Right. And it's a good lesson just in general. And it kind of goes back to, my son coming up with an Instagram account for his sports, Anything he posts, he has to ask me about first and show me. Yeah. Because even if you post something and then you delete it, it's still out there.
Yeah.
It's always out there.
Digital footprint.
and just like, coaches might see that moving forward. They might see what type of player that you are, depending on what you post on social media. If you're all about yourself or you're about your team. I mean, it's the same thing, right? So
college applications, job applications, internships, all of that stuff can go reference this database that you've put out into the world of your digital footprint.
Yeah. So you can leverage your social media or it could hurt you.
Right. And so likewise, we have on the mortgage side, we definitely use it to our advantage and disadvantage as well, right? When a buyer is looking to make an offer on a property, it's our standard practice that we call the listing agent. And just introduce ourselves, make sure that they understand that we're local and, who we are. If we don't already know them, usually we do. But we have had instances, because I tend to be a lot more active on posting on social media than my husband, and we work together. We've had instances where my husband has called the listing agent to introduce himself. And she goes, I follow your wife on Facebook or whatever. It's good. I know you guys get stuff done, which is great, right?
Yeah.
But we also kind of do our due diligence in checking up on them. I mean, not only on social media, I have software that I can actually track, like how many transactions people are doing, how many types of loans they are doing. And so I can use that information to make sure that I'm targeting what, our introduction even to be most appropriate to them, right? If it's a VA client applying, I already know whether they're comfortable and familiar with VA loans. Right. And if they're not, I need to give them a little education on that stuff. So it's just really helpful, but it's also really important that that once it's out there, it can be challenging to unwind from.
And, just like you're checking on agents, realtors, we check on mortgage brokers too.
I hope so.
Yeah. As a realtor, I will Google search and look up mortgage brokers and see, what they're putting out there in the world, what they're specializing in, what they like, what their profile looks like and how it is. You can tell a lot from somebody's profile, how serious they are, how much work they're doing. If their profile is one business and personal page, I don't know. They say you should have a personal page and a business page, which I completely agree with.
Yeah.
And keep your business on one and your personal on one. And sometimes if you overlap a little bit, it's fine.
Yeah.
But if you only have one personal and one business account and you're trying to be professional, but all you have is, personal stuff, and it makes me question a little bit how serious you're going to be and if you're going to be helping me and my clients and
or if they're out there like complaining about their clients or right. I mean, I've seen that. I've seen it where loan officers are posting negative things about their clients and I don't know if they're treating the last client like that, maybe they're going to treat the next one too. So
right. So, I mean, there's definitely ways that buyers and sellers can leverage social media. Besides those, there's other things that you can do in terms of what, probably what you post online. Like you said, use social media a lot. And I use it a lot too. As a buyer and seller, you can go online and find out what your realtor and mortgage broker are posting. Mm-hmm. You can find out, testimonials and reviews from them.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes we do interactive stuff,
right?
Events where you can go meet them face to face. You can get all that information online.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
Yeah. Which is really quite amazing.
Yeah. Which is really cool. So I encourage you guys, the buyer and seller, to go online, see how active your mortgage broker or your realtor is. I mean, the other thing is too, if you go on and you see like your realtor is not posting ever anything, but you want your house to, to
get exposure
to millennials, which are all online,
right?
That's going to be a negative.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
For sure, right? I mean, you want as much exposure as possible for your property. So if your agent is not advertising all of their listings or doesn't have listings to advertise, is that really a good fit?
Right.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of extra exposure there. And mortgage brokers, likewise, we tend to like post at the end of the year kind of the tallies of production and things like that. And sometimes, people inflate those things, but you can usually get a general feel for, who you're working with.
Yeah.
What their expertise
I love
is.
what you guys do is Paul and Danielle will go online and you guys will talk about like an issue that you had come up or answer some questions, talk about the rates for that day. I know Paul's really good about sending out the emails of the rates of the day.
Yeah.
All that stuff really helps not just the consumer, but agents as well, right?
Yeah.
So I'm getting market updates. I'm getting information. I'm passing it on to my team. Hey, watch this. This is good.
Yeah.
So that's super helpful too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And you can tell somebody's knowledgeable.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. Right. Obviously, Paul puts a ton of effort into like his weekly rate recap and things like that.
Yeah.
And you want somebody who knows and understands the market in all areas, right? If it's on the real estate side, you want to make sure they understand marketing. And you can get a feel for that.
Right. So I think the recap of today's show is use social media to leverage your power as a buyer and a seller, and not just the normal ways, but also, be careful in terms of what you're posting.
Yeah.
Think about it before you post it. Can this hurt if a seller sees this? Can this hurt if a buyer sees this?
Yeah. And I mean, I've definitely had instances where, after the fact, I maybe realized that the footprint I put out there wasn't the image that I wanted to put out there. And so, it's just important that you pay attention to those things ahead of time.
Yeah. People see it.
People see it.
The real estate play-by-play.
Cheers.
Cheers.